It's time for Wretched Radio with Todd Friel.
Happy Darwin Day! Whoop-de-doo. Yeah, it is. This is Wretched Radio. Every year, the atheists celebrate the life of Charles Darwin and his contributions. And we'd like to study his contributions, too, because there's a little something called social Darwinism, because ideas have consequences. Charles Darwin had a pretty big idea. Setting out on a voyage, a 3-day tour, landing on the Galapagos Islands to concoct a theory to do what? To suppress and deny the existence of God. It's called evolution, and Charles Darwin's name is frequently attached to the front of it, but social Darwinianism is a component of Darwinian evolution because people have used his ideas to do atrocious things. Now, does that mean that Charles Darwin is responsible for their wicked behavior? No. But has he been used to promote wicked behavior? Yeah. And we aren't done with it, by the way. We are seeing it in our culture today. This whole wicked infanticide push that we're seeing right now. The government, well, if the child is sick and diseased and can't contribute as much as mom and her spiritual advisor believe, we can kill it. What is that? Well, that's survival of the fittest. That's utilitarianism. That's, hey, if you can serve, we'll let you live. If you can't profit society or me in some way, we can take your life. Worldviews have consequences. And we want to be careful with this because, again, this doesn't disprove Darwinian evolution. Doesn't disprove it. That's disproven on its own terms. And by the way, this is exciting. 1,000, I think this was the folks at the Discovery Institute who did this. Yep, got it right here. 1,000 plus scientists share their doubts about Darwinian evolution, signing a public statement. That could cost you a gig. With their skepticism about the contemporary theory of Darwinian evolution. Quote, because no scientist can show how Darwin's mechanism can produce the complexity of life, every scientist should be skeptical. Unless, of course, you just want to believe it. Thought this was worth reading, as tedious as this might be, because the accusation typically against people who question evolution is they're morons. Oh, they're just stupid people. All those people at Answers in Genesis, they're just dum-dums. No, they're PhDs. The list of signatories includes 15 scientists from the National Academies of Science in countries including Russia, Czech Republic, Brazil, and the United States, as well as from the Royal Society. Really? Many of the signers are professors or researchers at major universities and international research institutions such as Cambridge, London's Natural History Museum, Moscow State University, Hong Kong University, University of Stellenbosch in South Africa, Institut de Paléontologie Humaine in France, Ben Gurion University in Israel, MIT, the Smithsonian, Yale, and Princeton. A group of dum-dums signing a skeptical statement about Darwinian evolution. We can certainly dismantle Darwinian evolution. It's preposterous. Nothing became something, blew up, became an organized everything. I don't care how much time you add to that.
I saw in Friends that it was like a proven fact years ago.
Oh, I know. That's what they say. Repeat that mantra often enough.
Over and over.
You know, and cats can fly. Cats can fly. Cats can fly. Show us. Just trust us. Dum-dum. So we can dismantle Darwinian evolution based on its own lack of merits. But what about the effects? Separate category and column. If you would like to see the entire presentation that we're going to share snippets of with you, we'd like to give it to you. It's What Hath Darwin Wrought? We've redone it. You can watch the whole thing with your family. I really think let's celebrate Darwin Day together by studying the consequences of Darwinian evolution theory. You can do that at wretched.org/Darwin, wretched.org/Darwin. You can just watch it right online. It's a download. It's an hour-long presentation. We've tightened it up because I spent a number of days with three different doctors, I guess they call them. David Berlinski, Richard Weikart, who's done exhaustive research, by the way, on the religion of Adolf Hitler. Bottom line, he wasn't a Christian. And John G. West, who wrote Darwin Day in America, still one of my favorite books, 10 years after the fact. John G. West was in Stockton, California when I interviewed him. Why there? Because that is where there was an institution where I believe it had the highest number of sterilizations performed of any place in the country. Lovely. So let's listen to this doctor talking about the history of Darwinian evolution.
Scientists.
This is, by the way, John G. West is his name.
These are some of the groups, largely led by scientists, and including the Eugenics Record Office, that were promoting this quasi-scientific crusade for eugenics, that we should breed better human beings, first by negative eugenics, getting rid of those who they thought were unfit in evolutionary terms, and then part two is positive eugenics, trying to get the people who typically happen to be the Nordic races from northern Germany or Norway or England, to try to get them to breed more.
Did you catch that? I want to make sure that I remember this.
That sounds familiar.
No, the Eugenics Records Office.
These are some of the groups largely led by scientists, and including the Eugenics Record Office.
Hello.
Did you know there was such a thing?
No, of course. You never hear about such things. They get buried in history.
They were one of the big groups of scientists promoting eugenics.
That would be the American Museum of Natural History. How many people tour through that Eugenics Museum?
And in the 1930s, if you visited the American Museum of Natural History in New York, they had a huge exhibition on eugenics because they were also hosting the World Congress of Eugenics. And when you went into this museum exhibit, there were two statues at the front of the exhibit who were given credit as the founding fathers of eugenics. One was Francis Galton, who actually coined the term eugenics and who was Charles Darwin's cousin.
Huh. I wonder why nobody talks about that family tree.
The other was Charles Darwin himself, as recognized as the founder of eugenics. And so for the American Museum of Natural History to have a propaganda campaign today with this worldwide exposition that's traveling to different countries, promoting Darwin and downplaying that the scientific community had anything to do with eugenics, this is just rich, because they've, to my knowledge, never apologized for their role. They were not just a side or bystander, they were a leader in promoting eugenics. They had a museum exhibit promoting eugenics. They were like one of square one. They were one of ground zeros for the promotion of American eugenics in the scientific community, led by their head, Henry Fairfield Osborn, a noted zoologist and, again, professor at Columbia University and head of the American Museum of Natural History.
Did you know that about the museum? Racism is a huge component that we have seen weaving its way like a wicked tapestry throughout the history of Darwinian evolution.
Well, they thought that minorities, in the South it was blacks, in places like California it was Hispanics, people who they thought were lesser stages of evolution and that were closer to the ape, actually, and people who are in lower stages of evolution.
Mm-hmm. Talk about a history that some people aren't willing to talk about. Eugenics in the 20th century flourished because of Darwinian evolution.
Eugenics, or the attempt to breed human beings according to Darwinian principles, was a very widespread effort. It was, in fact, the consensus view of the scientific community in America. Leaders and biologists from Harvard, Princeton, Yale, Columbia University here in California, Stanford University, University of California at Berkeley, heads of groups like the American Association for the Advancement of Science, the National Academy of Sciences. These were the leaders of this eugenics movement, and they thought it was good science because they thought it was a deduction from Darwinian biology.
Ideas have consequences.
Then they developed sterilization. They also believed in trying to limit who could marry each other. They also tried to put on draconian immigration restrictions because they thought people from Eastern Europe, from Mexico, again, people who represented, in their view, lower races, lower on the evolutionary scale, shouldn't be allowed in the United States.
Thank you, Charles Darwin. I hope you're having a good celebration today, my atheist friends.
Margaret Sanger was for forced sterilizations even after the Hitler experience. After World War II, people were so shocked by what Hitler did, both in gassing the handicapped and then gassing the Jews, and in hundreds of thousands of forced sterilizations, that eugenics became a bad word. But here we have Margaret Sanger in the 1950s still giving speeches advocating sterilization, still supporting forced sterilization, and lamenting that eugenics is now a bad word. So not only was Margaret Sanger for forced sterilization, she was still for it after many people ran away from it in the 1950s.
An award with her name on it is proudly displayed on the mantle of Hillary Rodham Clinton. Margaret Sanger, eugenicist, racist, and Darwinian evolutionist. Happy Darwin Day, y'all. This is Wretched Radio.